Okay, this is Greg Deckler, and welcome to MSHGQM. So in today's video, what I've done is I have gone through and I've ranked every idea that is ahead, has more votes than fixing measure totals, right? The idea I've been promoting. Not that, you know, probably already know that. So, um, so I wanted to do this because I started getting into this, and I wanted to get it. Once I got it into the top 100, um, then this became kind of a doable exercise, I guess you could say. Yeah, and really, when I started reviewing some of these top, vote things, I was like, really, this has more votes than fixing measure totals, which maybe my perspective is skewed on this. Um, but what I figured I'd do is I'd try to put together some rating criteria, right? So as you can see over here, I have an Excel spreadsheet, and I've got all the different ideas listed here, and these are the categories I came up with. And I ranked when I do category rankings, I always use a 1 to 5 scale, because anything you can do with a 1 to 10 scale, you can do with a 1 to 5 scale, in my opinion. And I'm always about not overly complicating stuff, and what is the real difference between a 7 and an 8? But with a 5 scale, I think it like makes sense. If you think of a bell curve, right? The smack dab in the middle is your three, right? And then the major categories on either side, are your two and your four, and then your fives and your ones should be pretty rare, right? So the categories I came up with was ease of use, like does it make Power BI easier to use and therefore leading to better user adoption? Okay. And then I have decreases complexity, and you may be thinking to yourself, well, it's the same thing. And not really. And here's how I look at it. A good example of this, I think, is um, visual level calculations, right? Now, it's going to add some ease of use to do certain things that you couldn't do before, easier. Um, but it's kind of going to increase complexity a bit. So it wouldn't rank, so I see them as two different things. And you can disagree, but there it is. We have an ease of use, we have a decreases complexity. I think they're different, but make your own observations. And then how easy is it to implement? And then is it really adding new functionality? Right? Because some things you can do today, you just have to go through extra steps. But is it really adding something new? And then the impact category is really it's about how many users that if you do this that it's going to impact, that this feature is going to impact, right? So if something like something to do with Python, well, you're only impacting Python users, which isn't probably not the vast majority of your Power BI users, right? Just your average everyday business user that doesn't know how to program. Okay, so those are the categories I came up with, and I have to assume that Microsoft has a similar kind of some way of ranking these things and figuring out what they're going to work on next, right? It's whatever that ranking is a mystery probably to everyone. But we'll get into some of that later. All right, so over here I've got my Power BI ideas, and I've got the top ideas, so it sorts them by number of votes. And so the first one on this list with the most votes, surprisingly to me, is add, expand, collapse feature to column headers. So basically the same you can do with rows. You can expand and collapse them, that you could do this with columns. So I guess if you have columns, you have multiple measures in them, you could kind of expand and collapse those somehow, or maybe it's a hierarchy thing. Anyway, some of these are a little weird to figure out. But yeah, this thing has like nine. How does something get nine? I have to believe that like some organization with a lot of people in it, like wants this feature, and they sent it out to like all of their 20,000 users and said go vote for this idea or something. I don't know how this got that many votes, but it did. But let's go and score this. So here it is. This is the scoring. So I mean, ease of use. Is this going to make Power BI easier to use? I don't think so. So it gets a 2. Is it going to decrease the complexity of using it? No, probably increase it a little bit. Be honest. How easy is this to implement? I think it's kind of moderately. It's probably right on, right down the center. So I give it a 3. And then, is it adding new functionality? Yeah, but you can still display the columns, right? I mean, you can still display all the information um, in there. It's just adding the ability expand and collapse it, which isn't like a tremendously new kind of thing. So again, I gave it kind of middle of the road. And then, I don't think, I mean, I rated it high in terms of, or right down the line. I mean, 9,000 users. I mean, I've never had a customer ask for this at all, or even talked to anybody that even wanted this thing. So, I gave it another three. You can disagree with this. I'll make this spreadsheet available out on the MSHGQM GitHub site. So if you want to download it and kind of do your own ranking, your own categorization, you'll have it. And so, how does that compare with like matrix table grand totals with measures, right? So ease of use. This would make things tremendously easier for users, right? Instead of having to write complex, sophisticated DAX and that, they, could just toggle a switch and away they go. I think that would make things a lot easier. In the same kind of manner, it would also decrease the complexity of getting correct totals in your tables, right? Because you don't have to write all that DAX. Is it easy to implement? I think this could be implemented in a month, right? I think this is a one sprint feature because the code, for a lot of it already exists in stacked visuals, right? So take the code, copy it over, create a new card, formatting card, and you're done to a large extent. Is it adding new functionality? Now, some people may disagree with me on this. Well, I can get correct measure totals. Well, no, you can't. Not in all situations. Not in self-service BI situations. So in self-service BI situations, yes, this would be adding new functionality where you could actually get correct totals to appear because as I showed in a couple of videos ago, you can't do it all the time. It's impossible. You would actually exceed 1 billion characters, which is the limit for a string once you hit about 23 columns, right? So, you know, I feel it is adding some new functionality. Impact. I gave this a 5 because I have to believe that pretty much everyone that's ever used Power BI has written a measure, some simple measure, and they've gotten a wrong total. Now, this, I think anyone that uses Power BI for any length of time is going to run into that situation. So I pretty much said it's going to impact pretty much everyone. And so, it gets a score of 22. All right, well, let's continue on here. Page tab level security. Now, this one again, 9,326 votes. There's a way to do this already, people. And it's actually covered like right here. It's like, here's how you do it. So okay, so is it adding some ease of use? I wouldn't say it's adding really any. It's not really adding any ease of use. Is it decreasing the complexity? Yes. About middle of the road. It's not decreasing a lot of complexity, but a little bit. Easy to implement. Probably middle of the road, easy to implement. Is it new functionality? Not really, because you can do it today. The other way you can do this is via like your audiences in your apps when you're doing that sort of stuff. There's multiple different ways to get around this problem. So I don't think it's really adding much new to the product. Impact, again, I've never had anyone ever complain about this or any customers that ever really wanted this, so okay. Just create a new report based off the same data model and don't give the users access to it. I mean, that's the other way to solve this thing. Anyway, so so it gets another score of a 13. Okay, option to use light or dark mode. Holy smokes, people, really? Come on. I mean, I'm a big fan of dark mode, right? It's great, but 8,280, this is more important than other things on the list, like things that are really actually broken. Just kills me, So I mean, so options like either light or dark, easy. It has nothing to add ease of use. There's nothing about that that's easier to use. It's nothing doesn't decrease any kind of complexity in the product. Is it probably easy to implement? Yeah, it's probably really pretty easy to implement. It's not really adding anything new. In the impact, it's got a lot of votes, I guess. It would, there's a lot of people that would probably use this feature, the dark mode, myself probably included. But come on, man. I mean, this is a nice to have on top of a nice to have. All right. So crazy that's like the third most votes on there. Add folder to organize reports on powerbi.com. Okay, so this one's an interesting one. This would be nice. I mean, I have to tell you, I've got huh, hundreds, if not thousands, of Power BI reports published out to my workspace, right? It would be nice to be able to organize those. because instead of just having that huge list of stuff. But if you think about this from like a enterprise business scenario, it's like the workspace is really kind of your organizational unit. And you're not going to, you probably, well, maybe, but are you really going to have like hundreds of thousands of reports published to a workspace that you would really need to organize? I mean, maybe. So add folders. I mean, it definitely would be have an impact on ease of use and decrease your complexity. Um, I think it would be fairly easy to implement. It's not really adding anything new because I mean, you can still have your reports in the service, so it's not like a huge impact as a new feature, I wouldn't think. But I think it would impact a lot of people. I think a lot of people would use it. So it gets a 15, once you total them all up. All right, measure management and DAX editor. So anyone that uses Power BI, has 50, 60 measures, time you can maintain it, and all that sort of stuff. And this I think is no that one. So this one's actually planned. Um, so this one is our fourth highest. It's planned to basically, it's better management, of some kind of interface for managing all the measures in your report. So again, I think it would definitely impact ease of use, um, decrease the complexity of doing stuff. I think it'd be fairly middle of the road to implement. It's not really adding a lot new. I mean, you can still do everything you can do in, you know, managing your measures and things like that. This just makes it easier, I suppose. But I don't know really know if this really has a big impact as far as like new functionality. Um, and so the impact, I think, there's probably enough people out there, but not everybody has 50 or 60 measures in their PBIX, right? Where this becomes a problem. A lot of people probably have, a couple, or maybe five or six or 10. And the other thing about this one is there's some external tools out here for handling some of this stuff, which is again why this renew is rated kind of low because the community has already developed some solutions to this problem. So that also comes into play. It's not just about Power BI Desktop, but it's about the ecosystem that's out there for Power BI. For Power BI. Okay, so default selected slicer, or tile by configuration. Default selected slicer. Allow a user to set the default value for a slicer. So this one is kind of interesting in terms of like, doesn't this really already exist? Like when they implemented like personal bookmarks and like when I go to report and I set my slicers, and then it remembers that the next time I come back, like isn't this one kind of done? Um, Maybe there's some aspects of this, that aren't fully implemented, and that's why, it's you know it's still out there as being planned, but I almost consider this kind of like a done thing. Um, so anyway, so default selected slicers, ease of use. I don't really see it adding much to ease of use or decrease in the complexity. I think it's pretty, fair to middling to implement. New functionality, it's already kind of there, people. And so the impact, I think people would use it, but probably just an average amount of people would use that feature. Okay, custom order for legend. Okay. So this is something else that can be done already, right? So for example, if you have like a color column, and you want to be colors are, white and black and stuff, and you want them ordered in a certain way, you can already do that today. Okay, what you do in Power Query is you duplicate the column, and then you create a calculated column in DAX, or you can do it in Power Query. That's the if statements, not having a case or switch statement in Power Query is a real pain. But you create a DAX calculated column that does a switch off of that, returns a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in whatever order you want. Then you can set your sort by column for your color column to that column, and then your legend's going to be sorted that way, right? So this one is like, okay, would it make it easier? Yes, it would make it easier. It would decrease the complexity, right, for doing it, because you wouldn't have to jump through all those hoops. I think it'd be fairly easy to implement, but new functionality, no. Man, you can do it today. You can literally do it today. And I'm sure people would use it, but really, I mean, it's amazing to me that some of the top vote getters on this stuff. It's just like, oh, blows my mind. So conditional formatting for text. It'd be great to conditional format table and matrix based on the cell text, not just the numbers. Okay, yes, but you can always just create a column or a measure that returns a number for the text values and color them based upon that. So Would it make it easier to use? Yes. Conditional programming X. I don't think it would do a ton to increase the ease of use. It would definitely decrease the complexity, right? You wouldn't have to create those extra measures, right? I think it should be fairly reasonable to implement. Middle of the road. I don't think it's new functionality. It doesn't strike me as like heavily new thing because again, you can kind of do it that way with numeric columns or measures. And I don't think I've never heard of anyone that wanted to do this exactly, but okay. Because the thing is, it's like also you can, well, anyway, we'll move on. Load data from Office 365 Planner to Power BI. Okay, sure, that would be cool. Create a connector. Um, right? Ease of use, it's probably a real pain to do it today. If you use Power Automate or dump it down to a CSV file, it would definitely increase the complexity, decrease the complexity of things. It's a connector. It's got to be pretty easy to implement. That could even be a four potentially. Um, is it new functionality? Yeah, you can kind of do it today. Again, you can export it and import it, and you can use Power Automate to dump a file out. You could do, there's different ways of going about it. So it's, again, it's not new functionality. And impact, I guess, whoever's using Planner would use it. It can't be, I don't know, maybe Planner is the most, popular thing out there, but I don't use it. All right, input fields. What about adding input fields to dashboard widgets, kind of like text fields that are enabled for user input? And they, you put in some number and everything changes based on. Again, it's like, don't we have this? Isn't this what like parameters were for? Like, it creates you an automatic slicer and you slice by it and you can have your measures impacted by it and everything else. So, yeah, it's okay. So again, it would probably make things easier, decrease some amount of complexity, probably about middle of the road to implement. New functionality, I don't see it. Um, because a lot of it's you can do that today with parameters and things like that. Impact, I'm sure some people would use it. Okay, so that's our first 10 right there, and here's our scores, right? And nothing's even close to a 22. We've got a 16 in here. That's our best one. Load data from Office 365 Planner. Okay, so let's move on to the next ones. We're gonna have to pick up the pace on this, or this is gonna be an hour-long video. Okay, no alignment options available in card visuals. That is a true statement. I've never really found that to be a problem because I can resize my card and kind of like make it, shove it up towards the top more or less, or to the right. I can, you can do that along with you just changing the size of the visual. But and I don't use the multi-card visual because it's god awful. But so maybe this is a good idea. Maybe that would make multi-card visuals like actually usable. Who knows? Okay, so input no alignment options, easy use. It really wouldn't do anything for easy use or decreasing complexity. Should be fairly easy to implement. Definitely would add new functionality, right? And then, whoever uses card and multi-card visuals would probably use it, but I don't know. It would seem weird to me to have a card visual that was like justified to the left or the right. It just for a card visual just makes sense that you want the thing in the center. But maybe somebody wants it out there. Apparently, 3,610 people do. All right, support creating calculation groups in Power BI. Again, okay. So would definitely, would make it easier, would definitely decrease complexity. Um, should be fairly easy to implement. It's not really new functionality. You can do it in Tabulator, and there's a free version of Tabulator to let you do it. And I think, whoever uses calculation groups would use it, which isn't everybody, and probably not even close to everybody. Power BI Designer API. One's kind of an interesting one where basically, it allows other tools to generate a PBIX file, which seems like a weird concept. I read through this a couple times, and you know, I think I don't. It's not really benefiting Power BI necessarily, right? In terms of ease of use or anything like that. I think it would be fairly difficult to implement this. Apparently, it's planned, so somebody's working on it. It'd definitely be a very new kind of thing. You could even argue that this should be a 5. Who's all going to use this one? Like how many users is this really going to impact? I think maybe more like ISVs or something like that, but I don't know, like business users, like the vast majority of Power BI, are they going to use this feature? I don't really see it. Multiple y-axis, more than two, which I mean, is like I don't even know if I'd want that feature. To be perfectly honest, like I guess it's planned. I guess I don't have to use it if I don't want it. I I struggle a little bit with this one in terms of like what would that look like exactly, and how could you keep that straight in a visual? Because a lot of times when you use multiple y-axis, it's with you got two metrics, um, and a lot of times it's even distinguished between a column chart and a line. You have a column line chart, right? And your y-axis is for your column, and your other y-axis is for your line. That makes a lot of sense. But three? Like, how do you keep it straight on which one's which? I don't know. I'd have to see the implementation of this one. This one just strikes me as weird. And again, there's 2,784 people that want to have three or more y-axis on their chart. Okay. So again, I don't think it would add anything about ease of use in any way. Should be middle of the road to implement. Definitely new functionality. You can't do anything like that today. I don't think very many people would use it. I sure as heck wouldn't, unless I'm completely missing the boat on this one. Okay, DAX calculations at visual level reports. Okay, so here we go. So it would definitely make certain things easier, most likely. I think it would actually kind of increase complexity. So I gave it a low, decreased complexity score. I think it's difficult to implement if you're adding a whole new thing, within um, Power BI. So I don't think it would be in any way, easy to do. However, I gave it a 5 because it's definitely would be a huge thing, right? And I think it would. I think a lot of people would use it. So but is it going to increase adoption of Power BI this way or make it easier to use? I don't know. It would be interesting. We'll have to see. I know it's being worked on. I know it's the big new thing that was announced and shown and all of that. So yeah, it's an upcoming roadmap. So we'll see how things go. I don't know how much I would use it exactly. I have to see it. Maybe I would use it. But like if offset is like the initial like part of the roadmap for for this. You know, I haven't released a video on offset because it's still preview. It's not really officially supported. It's right now. I'm not impressed with the offset function. And if you want to see some really bizarre totals, use an offset function and look what your totals look like. They are bananas nuts crazy in tables and matrices. They are just I can't even figure out how it's calculating the totals. So maybe that'll be fixed when it's an actual real function. Add monthly as a scheduled refresh option. I mean, again, okay, yeah, it makes sense that that you'd want a monthly option. That does make some amount of sense, but is it making anything easier or less complicated? No, it should be easy to implement. It's new functionality, right? You can't do that today. You only have daily and weekly and that sort of stuff. I don't think very many people use that because it's the only people that would use it would be people that have a data set that they only want to get updated monthly. Most people that's that whenever you talk to them, it's like they want more refreshes and they want the data faster and more refreshed, right? Versus less. So I can't believe it's a huge number of people that would use it. Field format report wide. This is kind of an interesting one too. So essentially, I want to have this measure displayed this way in every visual. You sort of have that functionality with themes, but not really, right? Not at a specific this measure. I want it displayed, in this report with this, font size and field formatting, color, and all of that, right? Conditional formatting. So interesting. I don't think field format definitely ease of use, right? Because instead of doing it in 16 different places, I can do it in one, right? That's pretty cool. Definitely would decrease the complexity of doing those operations. I don't think it's be super easy to implement. Um, I don't think it's really adding new functionality, right? Anything you could do with this, you could do manually, individually to each measure, right? Um, I do think that a lot of people would use that feature because there is a lot of times you're using the same measures around the same, all the different or columns and all of the different these different visuals, and it would help with that. Um, but again, like Format Painter, kind of makes this, kind of nice as well, or at least addresses some of this, right? And I use Format Painter a ton. Clustered plus stacked chart. So this would be my new, so if this actually became a thing, this would be my new candidate for ugliest visual on the planet. Because I already think stacked visuals are some of the ugly, like I said, I think I said this in a different video. They're like worse versions of pie charts. Right? That's how I look at them. This this would be a god awful visual. I can't believe that this many people want this thing. But sure, okay. Um, Again, I don't think it's adding anything easy use. Should be easy to implement. It's a visual, right? People can create visuals. There's tons of visuals out there. It's middle of the road new feature. It is a new visual. Um, you can there's different ways to kind of solve this problem to a certain degree with the existing visuals that you have. Uh, I guess some people would use it. I would never use that visual. If I could right click it and say hide, I would. All right, so dynamic date slicer, improve the relative date slicer. Okay. And again, okay, new date slicer is awesome and nice to have dynamic date selection. Yeah, I mean, it's always nicer to have, nice, new slicer function is always welcome, right? Um, I don't think it would do anything for easy use. I think it would decrease some complexity of doing certain things that you have to do today to kind of solve for problems like this. Probably should be about middle of the road to implement. Definitely a new feature. If you read through and exactly what they're describing here, in the impact, I think there's quite a few people that would use it. Slicing on dates is very, very common. But and I didn't really look out there in the visuals gallery to see if there was anything like it. So maybe this new might be a little high. But stop data set refresh. Okay, so this is basically a refresh is kicking off and it's taking a really long time. You just want to stop. You just want to kill it because it's burdening your enterprise data gateway or something, right? I don't think it's really adding anything to easy use, easy to implement. Should be, I don't know, that might be, that might be high. This could be a really tough thing to do, but I don't think it should be. It should be about average, I would think. Definitely would be new functionality. I think people would use it. Apparently, the people that have that want to kill their data refresh, I suppose, they're just letting it finish. All right, so we're on to page 3. We've only got like 9.5 of these pages. All right, so when showing subtotals at the bottom, show the attributes there as well as on the top. You can read through that one. Again, it's like that is to me is a very much a nice to have. It's not doing much as far as making things easier or reducing complexity. I think it's easy to implement. It would definitely be new. I think the impact would be small. I mean, I'm not sure everybody even wants that. Clear all slicers. This is another one that just blows my mind. Right? You can do this today, man, with a bookmark, right? And you can do this in the service with reset to default. Um, to clear any slicer selections that the user has done. So I mean, clear all slicers again. It would make things a little less complex. You wouldn't have to create that bookmark and that button and things like that. Easy to implement, probably. New, no. Impact, you can do it today. Um, yeah, so I'm sure somebody would use that or find it useful. Show column data profile statistics in header. This is kind of an interesting one, right? So similar to Power Query, when you're in data view, that you could show all of that. Now the Power Query is, it's only on the sampled data, so it's fast, right? This could be a real problematic if you're getting into like billion or billion row sets or hundreds of millions of rows, right? This could be problematic to generate the statistics and all of the histograms for that and everything. So what uh, yeah, so I give this, again, it's not making anything easier. I think it should be relatively easy to implement because the functionality already exists in Power Query, so you just kind of translate that code down to the data view. Um, it's not really new, and you have the statistics in Power Query, and you can actually you can use the visualization of Power BI to create those histograms. You could have like a data profile page that you create, and you create all the histograms and all those statistics and information, right? So is it adding new functionality? No, not really, because you can do it. I don't think a lot of people would use it. Maybe I'm wrong. Security, ability to maintain source security for reports published in Power BI. And this is a really long one to read through. It goes through, but essentially, you sort of have this already with analysis services. But this is really more talking about like other data sources, I guess, other than like analysis services, because analysis services will pass along. And there's this you can read, hey, this sort of do this in certain data sources today. So uh, let's see. Clear all slicers, show data profiles, say security. Here we are. We should probably be scrolling on this. So I think this would definitely make things easier, right? You don't have to create all the RLS rules, and all of that complexity and stuff. So it definitely would increase ease of use and decrease complexity. I think it would be difficult. It's difficult to implement for all these different data sources, especially data sources Microsoft doesn't own. Or if you're trying to, man, like one of the suggestions in there was like Dynamics 365, and enforcing all the role security and stuff. I think it'd be a difficult thing to do, so I gave it a something that's very difficult. Very definitely new functionality. You'd be adding at least new data sources, not necessarily new functionality and stuff like, hey, you can already do it with analysis services. And I think impact, I think, is probably about average. Source control. All right, so source control, I have some type of source control. Again, this is planned, although, well, I won't get into that right now. Source control, so ease of use definitely would make things easier to use, right? Today, what I see a lot of people do is they save a PBIT file, a template file, and they shove it up into some source control system. If you could basically sort of do something, do that, and other people will take their DAX code and throw it up into source control, their M code, and throw it up into source control. But definitely would decrease complexity around that, and make it things a lot easier, right? Um, Easy implement, probably about middle of the road. New, yeah, I mean, there definitely would be new functionality, although you can do a lot of it today. And I think a lot of people would use that feature. Um, yeah, it might be a little high. I don't think you're having the vast majority of business users are going to be worried about source control. But, more of your professional BI developers, this would definitely be a huge, huge thing. But so it gets, it's pretty high. It's up there. It gets an 18. Calculate measures when live connected MDX cubes. Okay, I'm not think you're making anything easier, less complicated. I think it would be relatively difficult to do. New, yep, it's definitely would be new things that you could do with it. Um, Impact, the only people that would be the people that have MDX cubes, which isn't a lot, isn't the vast majority of people. Increased export data limits, right? Okay, so 150,000 rows today, get that up there. Definitely would increase ease of use and decrease complexity. I think it should be fairly easy to implement. Just okay, take that limit off and change that number. You know, 1 to 150,000, change that to 300,000, something like that. New functionality, yeah. I mean, I guess it's at least you can export. You can't export that many rows today, so definitely be new. Impact, that might be even high. Copy paste the data behind the visual in Power BI to other applications. This would be kind of a cool feature. So you could right click a visual and copy, and then like maybe paste it into Excel or something like that. It'd be a little bit odd, but so I don't think it's really increasing ease of use. Should be fairly easy to implement. New, yeah. Impact, I'm sure some people would use it. Subscribe to email snapshots of reports in specific filter slicer states. Okay, so basically, if I subscribe to something, that I could set the slicers and then subscribe to it. Sure, I don't think it's really increasing ease of use at all. Should be middle of the road to implement. New, yes. Impact, the only people that use subscriptions. That's query language visual. It's kind of an interesting one. Again, my perspective on this one is So basically, you write a DAX query that returns a table, and the visual will display the table. Um, that's called a table. It's called a calculated table. Just use a calculated table. There's your table. There's your visual. Right? So, I don't know. I don't know about this one. Um, I think it'd be way more. This one doesn't even appear anywhere in the top, but it was like one of my pet ones that I don't make a big deal about um, because it's not like a horrendous design decision like other things. But like what would be more useful to me would be to have a DAX measure that could store a table, um, or return a table. If you just could have measures that return tables, um, and then then this problem would also be solved, right? Because you could just have a table visual and then just drag your DAX measure that returns a table into the table visual, and voila, there's your visual. Right? So that to me would be a lot more useful, because a lot of times when I'm writing measures and that I use a lot of table variables, and a lot of times I have to include the same table variable in multiple measures. So that would be way more useful to me. Um, but that's my own personal one. I think I actually have that idea out there. I have to find that idea somewhere, but it that would be way more useful than this, in my opinion. How did I rate that one? DAX, query language, 3. Ease of use, yeah, sure. Decreased complexity, sure. Easy to implement, should be relatively easy to implement. Definitely new functionality, and impact is, I don't think a lot of people use it. Add word wrap to bar chart y-axis labels. Okay, yep, that would be kind of nice to have. I don't think it's doing anything as far as complexity and ease of use. It should be relatively middle of the road to implement. New functionality, yep, it'd be cool. Impact, I think reasonable number of people would use it. Visibility, hide an item. So basically, when I conditionally hide the item based on the report parameter. So like for visuals and stuff, again, you can kind of achieve this with bookmarks and that sort of stuff today. So, you know, and it's planned. So 10 cent is now in our upcoming roadmap. But like why? Because when I rank this, okay, ease of use, okay, you don't have to use bookmarks and this and that. Decreased complexity, yeah, middle of the road, compared to what you have to do today. Should be relatively easy to implement. It's sort of new functionality, sort of not. You can sort of do this stuff. Are people really going to use it? I don't know. It came out of 14 in my ranking, so this wouldn't have been like my first choice of something to go do. But that's me. We'll do a sort at the end of this, and we'll see what comes out on top. Allow fonts to be customized. This is like okay. This is almost like I kind of consider this the give me a dark mode. Yes, it would be nice to have more. They've already added more fonts. Would it be nice to have add more fonts? Maybe. It's like, as long as they don't include Comic Sans, I suppose. Like, yeah, do you really want Comic Sans and like Giggly or whatever those like some of those cursive fonts? Do you really want those in reports? I think that could get I think less is more for me, less is more. Just give me clear, readable fonts, that aren't going to get me in trouble, and don't give me like all 70,000 fonts from Microsoft Word. You know, I don't really want that, but it's got some support. Obviously, I don't think it's doing anything around ease of use. Maybe I'm wrong on this. Like, I think there were some blog articles I've seen about getting custom fonts into Power BI, and it's sort of complicated. So maybe I underrated this one. Should be relatively easy to do. We have fonts and everything, every other Office application. Um, New, yeah, okay, you got new fonts. It's not like you can still display stuff as text. Impact, I guess people would use it. I would hope that very few people would use Comic Sans in their reports, but that's just me. Okay, export charts directly to Excel. Again, you can kind of do this today. You got to jump through a few hoops. Um, so maybe this should be rated a little higher. And Easy to implement, sure. New, you can kind of do it today. Impact, I think people would use it. An average number of people. I don't think everyone would use it, right? When I look at stuff like this, I'm like, would everyone benefit from that? A lot of people that don't have any reason or desire to export to Excel, which I rarely have ever like desired that feature. Well, I don't think I've ever even thought of that feature. Field duration type. Okay, I mean, I yelled and screamed about this issue for years until Chelsea Iden came along and basically fixed it. Um, they fixed it, not in the way that I would, necessarily have thought of, but good enough that it passes the smell test, if you will, right? I can now actually have a duration appear, and it's a column in my column charts and things like that, and it appears as a duration, but it acts like a numeric value and all that. So I actually kind of consider this kind of a solved problem, or at least good enough, where you can get around this kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I think it would make it easier to use. You do have to write some DAX to get that to work, and you have to set your custom format strings. So I think it would reduce complexity even more, or decrease complexity even more than it would even make things easier to use. Implement, I think it'd be about middle of the road to implement. Although that might be low because I mean, if you're adding a duration type, I mean, you basically have to add a whole new um, that you're affecting the tabular cube, and that the tabular analysis. You're creating a new type of column or thing, where it's that could be a lot of work. New, sure, it's new, relatively new. Although again, you can do a lot of it. Impact, this might be a little high. Although there's a lot of people that love their durations. I see a lot of those out on the forums. All right, so and by the way, I'm basing a lot of this impact and things like that by like, having spent 7+ years on the forums. What are the stuff that I see people asking for or having problems with, repeatedly? And most of it is not the stuff we've covered so far. It's mostly measure totals. All right, add the axis interval in the charts. Add the axis. So I think there's a duplicate of this one later on. So they may need to be combined. But basically, hey, basically Power BI picks your interval for you, and you don't really have any kind of control over it to any real degree. So I don't think it's adding much ease of use. Should be easy to implement. Definitely newer functionality. You don't really have that control today. I think people would use it. Transfer ownership of created dashboards. So sort of yes, no on this one. I mean, you have workspaces and you add multiple people to the workspace. As long as one of them's there, you can, get access to it. Um, and the best practice person to me is like, yeah, you really should be using a service account to go and publish your stuff, you know, versus doing it yourself. Create that service account, and when you publish out your production reports, use the service account, so that way it never goes away. So I'm not really thinking it's making things easier to use. It should be relatively easy to implement. I don't think it's really adding much new. I don't think a lot of people would use it. You should do it the right way. Better auditing of user activity. See, in this one, I don't know why. I don't know why this is still here. Um, I mean, the audit log is pretty extensive. Um, so I'm not sure why this is still there. I mean, they're like, hey, everything in Power BI should be logged. I think pretty much everything in all user activity in Power BI is pretty much logged in the Power BI audit log. Maybe I'm missing something on this one. But again, okay, so fine. Uh, Ease of use, decrease complexity. It's not doing anything for that. Ease to implement. Yeah, should be. I guess if you're missing some activities, Microsoft, add them into the audit log. New. I don't think it's adding much new, and I don't. The only people that are going to use this are the Power BI administrators and your security people and stuff like that. So all your business users, that has zero impact on them. They don't care. Export to PowerPoint via the Power BI desktop only. You can do that. This is just taking a few steps away. Publish it up to the desktop service, export to PowerPoint. So it's not, again, easy use. No, it's decreasing complexity, yes. Um, Easy to implement should be easy to implement. You can do it in the service. You should be able to do it in Power BI Desktop without too much trouble. New, not really much new. Impact, yeah, that's probably a little high. I don't know, but there's a lot of PowerPoint users out there, so make functions refreshable when the data source is a parameter of the function. This one I read through about 12 times to try to understand what the beef was. Um, and you can go read through it on your own. I'm not really going to delve into it. It's not really adding much in terms of easy use. It should be fairly easy to implement. New, yes, it's definitely new functionality. It's not there today. But and this only impacts people that use Power Query functions, which is not the vast majority of people, I don't believe. On to 5. VBA for Power BI Desktop. Okay, I mean, this is, obviously this would be a really super interesting feature. Basically, you're bringing automation to Power BI Desktop, which people have talked about for a long, long time. So like you can automate pretty much anything in Word and Office and things like that. So definitely a really cool feature. Um, so yeah, we're here now. You probably keep track of this a little better. It's not really at doing anything as far as easy use. I think it'd be tremendously difficult to implement this, which is probably why it doesn't exist. Huge, and it gets a 5 here. Like that would be huge, tremendous new functionality, right? Open up all kinds of possibilities, right? Um, and I that this might be a little high. Would an average number of people use this feature? I don't know. Really, it's only your developers, so this might be a 2 in that case. So freeze column in table chart. So essentially, um, like freeze the left-hand column, kind of like with like Excel, you can freeze the top row and things like that. I don't think it's adding anything in terms of easy use or decreasing complexity. Should be relatively easy to implement, definitely be new. I think your average number of people would use it. Although I never really ever thought about this. Could be handy. It would be handy. Allow for point in time snapshots for reports. Okay, this has been asked for like a long, long time. I'm actually kind of surprised it doesn't have more votes because I see this on the forums, or at least used to see this on the forums quite a bit. But it basically allow you to like, save the point in time snapshots of a report. Yeah, you can do this today to a certain degree, right? You just, okay, take a report, download the PBX, save it off. That's that month's report. Don't refresh it. Right? And same thing. So that's fine. So it's not really doing much as far as ease of use. Maybe decrease complexity. That could be, that should be a 4. Easy to implement. I don't think this is particularly easy to implement. I don't think it's really adding much new. And especially you got scorecards now. You can do some of this type of stuff that gives you snapshots at points in time and things like that. So, I think some people would use it. It's been asked for enough, that's for sure. But is it like your vast majority of people? I wouldn't say vast majority. I would say more your average number of people. Set your default theme. This one's interesting. Then a place to set defaults for all Power BI visuals. That's a theme. you know, so I'm not quite sure on this one. It's like you have themes. You can do, a dedicated place to set defaults for all Power BI visuals. That's a theme. It's a theme file. Now, whether that's part of your when you fire up Power BI, you have to apply your theme, right? It would be kind of nice to have you know, but if you use like Brian Julius, Enterprise DNA, as like a LinkedIn post where, he basically creates a report with all his settings, for like just the way exactly the way he wants it, auto time intelligence turned off and all this other stuff. In his what is it, the new modern visual tooltip, the MVT, which is preview right now. But he's got that, it's like so if you do it that way, right, you've actually have this functionality. So you take and you create your PBX file and you save it, and then every time that you want to create a new report, you open that file, you save it as another PBX. So you really can kind of do this today. So ease of use would decrease complexity, should be easy to implement. Just putting a new option in your report settings, right? New or global settings. You can do it today. Impact, I think people would use it. Multi-row card improvements. Yeah, yeah, the multi-road card is an awful visual. It's not super. I don't use it hardly at all because uh, it's just so limited options. So I mean, I agree with this that this could be improved greatly. But would it make it easier to use? No. Would it would it increase adoption? Would it decrease the complexity of Power BI or anything like that? No, not really. It should be easy to implement. I mean, do anything with multi-cards, and it's going to be an improvement. It would be new functionality, right? Yes. Impact only the people that use multi-row card visuals, which maybe it increases after this one goes through. Um, Hide filters pane on Power BI report server. Okay, sure. I don't think it's doing anything as easy of use. It should be easy to implement. Put a thing where you can a flag where you can that thing's hidden or not hidden. It would be new functionality, right? It doesn't exist today. You can't hide it today. Impact. It's only people that use Power BI report server. Provide enterprise gateway setup for Power BI Python scripting, and I've actually voted for this one. I don't know when I voted for this one, but I voted for this one at some point. Um, Ease of use doesn't do anything for that. Doesn't decrease complexity. Easy to implement should be right. It's supported in the personal gateway, but not on the enterprise gateway. And I always found that bizarre. Right? It was always kind of odd to me that like the personal gateway supported different functionality than the enterprise gateway. Like I think at one point the personal gateway could supported like on-premises sources mixed with cloud source cloud-based data sources, and like the enterprise gateway didn't. It was like it always seemed like why? It's like it should be this. You should just have one gateway code, man. Why aren't those code bases like merged or something? What was going on with that? So that always seemed bizarre to me. So yes, anything that should be supported in the personal gateway should be supported in the enterprise gateway. Absolutely. Now, if there are certain features in the enterprise gateway that weren't supported in the personal gateway, that would make more sense to me. Because okay, this is your enterprise gate anyway. Would it be new functionality? Yeah, it can't do it today apparently. Impact, I gave it a one. It's the only people that use Python, man. And then when I be so here's where a one. Here's why it's a one. You have only people that use Python, and only people that use Python with on premises data sources. So that's how you get to a one as far as impact. It's not that many people. Even though again I voted for it, it makes sense to me that the gateway should be same functionality. Full screen dashboards in Power BI Desktop. Okay. It's not doing anything for ease of use. Should be easy to implement. New, yes, technically new. Would people use it? Average amount of people. Sure. Again, that just seems like dark mode to me. Add option to set font color of selected items in Slicer. It's kind of an odd one. They want to make the default color of text to be, you know, different colors or backgrounds, different colors. I never once like I guess it's to highlight things or something. I don't know. I've never once thought of like I would ever want this thing. Anyway, I don't think it'd make anything easier or anything. It'd be easy to implement. I think it'd be new functionality. You can't do it today. I don't think very many people would use it. Only the people that use slicers and only the people that want a different color for different items in their slicer. I don't know. Then all right, slicer search, add a selected. Now this is a cool idea, I think. Um, so basic slicer in Power BI. So if you search for it, like you have to like select individual things, and like it'd be nice if you just click a button say select all. I think that'd be a useful feature to have. It'd make things far easier to use, right? It doesn't really decrease the complexity of anything, but it has a high ease of use score as far as the end user. Like they search for something, they don't have to go click 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 click. They can just click a select all and boom. So yeah, definitely easier to use, so scores high in that. Doesn't really decrease the complexity of anything. Should be easy to implement. Is definitely new features, and I think a reasonable average number of people would use it. All right, moving right along. Extend DAX format function for colors. I find this one a bizarre request. I'm not even sure this is a good idea. Um, DAX is the things that should control colors. Um, and things like that. That's to me, that's the visual. Like you're almost like to a certain degree, you're violating kind of a principle of like CSS versus the data, the web page. The web page defines the structure. The CSS defines how that should look. And to me, that this is kind of violating that. Um, I don't know if I would want this. Sorry, David, but I'm not sure this is a good idea. But in terms of if I'm looking at this objectively, as far as ease of use, okay, it could definitely improve some marginally as far as like ease of use, I guess, because you do the stuff in the DAX function, and then you wouldn't have to set it in every visual, I guess, is the concept here. So it kind of seems similar to me that this one really might be, you might want to combine this one with the idea that would say, hey, let me format all my measures, in one place, or for all visuals within the report, versus doing it in DAX. I still I don't like the whole thing about DAX. This decreased complexity, this might be lower, but I'm not going to go there. Easy to implement, middle of the road. You can add new DAX functions, right? Big deal. But this might be new. No, it's not really new. You can, all it's doing is taking the formatting out of the hands of the visual and putting it in DAX. Impact, I think it'd be very few people would probably use this. And, maybe I need a new column for it. Not a good idea. Again, sorry, David. I have a problem with this idea. I really don't think that this is the way to go for that. Power BI online query parameters. Continuation of allow runtime parameters, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into this one. You guys can read about it. It's got, I basically just gave it threes across the board. I think some people would use it, definitely make things easier and decrease complexity and all that. Create calculated columns and using SSAS Live Connect. This again, this sort of is there, right? It's well, they even say it right down here. Direct query for analysis services. So I doubt they're gonna, it even says they're not gonna implement this separately. So I really think that this should probably go away. I think direct query for analysis services kind of solves this problem because now you can get, you can have a live connection, a real-time connection to your SSAS tabular cube. So I don't know why this is still out there, or why it's planned. It seems like this is implemented to me. So did I miss this one? Power BI online create calculated columns and using live connections. I just don't have I've got word wrap turned on. All right, so yeah, I don't know. I gave it threes and gave it an impact of two. Again, this seems done to me. Table matrix total column in first position. This has more votes than fixing the totals in the first place. Ah, allow total column in table or matrix to be the first position instead of last. So again, this one you might want to combine this, Microsoft, with the freezing the columns, because you could freeze the yeah, I would think you'd want to implement this at the same time, almost like with the freezing of the columns and things like that. Because if you had your columns first and you could freeze that, your totals first and that sort of thing. I mean, it's a reasonable request. I don't think it does much as far as ease of use. Should be easy to implement. Middle of the road, new, and I don't know. Some people would probably use it. It would seem weird to me, but hey, people have all kinds of different ideas on this stuff. Support relative path to Excel CSV files. This is another idea. There's a lot of support for it, but basically it's like, okay, you put the CSV or the Excel file in the same folder as your PBX file, and so therefore it doesn't keep the absolute path to it. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this feature. But so let's see how I scored this thing. I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think it does anything as far as ease of use. Could be easy, middle of the road to implement. I don't think it's much new. That might be should be a little lower, right? It's not like you can't import Excel and CSV files today, right? I really don't. Kind of, sorry, Boris, but I'm not a fan of this feature. I don't think this is a good idea to implement that. Connect SAP BW with SSO. Okay, ease of use and all that. I don't think there's much of an impact. Middle of the road as far as new functionality, easy to implement. It's only people that use SAP BW. That's got a pretty low. That could even be a 1 potentially. Power BI collaborative development. This has been talked about for a long time. I think there's been major strides made on this in the service. Now that you have, kind of report authoring capabilities and, are more in the service. But yeah, I mean, this right now, you have to pass PBX files, back and forth between developers, or only one person can be working in the PBX at a time, stuff like that. And it is, somebody's creating the data model and somebody's doing the report development. You can do that today, but invariably the report developers, I need this measure. I can't create this measure. Go back to the data modeler. Hey, go create this measure. So this could be definitely improved. It would definitely make things easier to use or easier, decrease the complexity. Yep. I don't think it's really even all that easy to implement. I think it'd be difficult. Um, and then definitely be somewhat new functionality, and impact is, I think, well, really this could be even lower, because really it's really only your report developers that are going to be needing this. But I mean, your business users might use it too. Vertical and horizontal multiples. Small, again, this one seems like this exists. They release small multiples, but I'm gonna kind of rank this one as like as if it doesn't, right? Uh, Definitely, ease of use. Doesn't really decrease complexity really that much. Easy to implement. Probably they implement it, I think. It's new functionality and impact. Okay, I don't use the small multiple. I have used the small multiples. I have. So disable request access feature. Okay, I don't think it does anything around ease of use. Easy to implement. Yeah, I should be able to, put a tenant setting that, checkbox and says you can't request access to stuff. New, an impact, it should probably be lower. Well, maybe not. Maybe a lot of organizations do. I was thinking like, oh, the only people that think we would care about this are the Power BI admins. So, I'll leave it at 3. Data catalog integration in Power BI. I love how old some of these these ideas are. They're like, it's still called Designer, right? So, um, but then they call it desktop. I don't know. Anyway, missing integration with data catalog. Does somebody use the data catalog? I'm not sure. I'd love to see the usage statistics on that one. Data catalog integration. Yeah, I mean, there's probably ways to do it. Again, this would that having a connector or something to it, or having integration with the data catalog, would definitely make it easier for people to find stuff, right? That's the whole purpose of the data catalog. Um, so I could definitely see that being, increasing ease of use, decreasing some complexity. It's a connector, right? Should be easy to implement, or Microsoft owns data catalog, so they should be able to do something with it. It would definitely be new functionality. I don't think, only people that would use it are data catalog users, so this could even be a 2. All right, we're blowing through these now. We're getting down to the last few pages. Data catalog, so we're here. Measure dependency view, similar to query dependency view. Okay, so this one, that would be nice. It'd definitely be easier to use. Today, you can get some of that functionality from um, external tools like MK Feldman has, her Power BI cleaner. There's some of this functionality in Bravo as well. So, yeah, it'd be easier to use. You don't have to use an external tool, and decrease the complexity a little bit. Should be relatively easy to do it. Other external developers have been able to do it, so Microsoft should too. New, this could be lower because you have external tools that do it. Impact, I think people would use that. Although that could be a little lower because really you don't. No, I think people would use that so that they could, once they look at a report, they could be like, okay, can I delete this measure or not delete this measure, or doing cleanup on stuff like that? I could see that. Report tab color, another dark mode, in my opinion. So, they're like hide, unhide. Well, you can do that for tabs, but having colored report tabs. I never ever thought about that. But would it do anything as far as making things easier to use? No, should be easy to implement. I don't think it really adds much new. And I don't think a lot of people would use colored report tabs. I mean, heck, and if you, well, access with configurable units interval. So this is that duplicate I was talking about before. I think this one needs to be combined with that other one because they're talking about the same thing. I think. So basically, you have like a your low and your min, your max, and Power BI automatically chooses the interval for where it's going to display things. So I really think that this one should probably be combined with the other one. I think I gave it the exact same ratings, and so away we go. Regular expression support in Power Query. I think, well, I thought I read a blog article somewhere that talked about using regular expressions in Power Query, although it might have been using like R or Python. Um, so I definitely would make things easier than using R or Python's, script steps or things like that. It doesn't really decrease the complexity. I mean, it kind of adds complexity. Regex is complicated. Trust me, I've had to written it. I had to write enough of it, writing some of my external tools. Um, Easy to implement, should be pretty easy to implement, middle of the road to implement. Definitely would be new. You really can't do it today as far as in the M code doesn't support regex expressions. And then impact, it's only the people that use Power Query extensively and only the people that want to use regular expressions. So it doesn't rate highly on that. Moving, rearranging calculated columns. Yeah. Well, we'll just rate it. It really doesn't do anything for easy use or reduce complexity. Could be relatively easy to, middle of the road to implement. Nothing really new. I mean, the calculated columns appear at the end. You want to move them somewhere else. Okay. Impact. Yeah. All right. Export to PowerPoint with individual image elements. So instead of exporting a one per page or, basically um, every visual become its own PowerPoint page. Easy use definitely would implement, would increase ease of use, right? You can get there today. You just have to take some work. You have to go in the PowerPoint and then, or do screenshots or whatever it is. So it definitely would be easier, increase if you wanted to do that. Decrease the complexity of how to get there. Should be relatively middle of the road to implement. New functionality, you can kind of do some of that today. And I gave it a 2 as impact. Again, I'm not sure how many people would want to do that. So apparently 833. Matrix, sort columns by value. Sort columns by value. Allows sort columns by designated values being priority above the column field names. For example, my field in the column section results in 3 columns. You got 2. This one, sure. I think I just gave it 3s across the board and was done with that one. Connect to password protected Excel workbook. Yeah, I mean, sure. I don't know if it'd make things any easier. It should be easy to implement, or at least middle of the road to implement. It's kind of new functionality. Impact people that use protected Excel workbooks that don't want to unprotect them. I guess I don't think there's a ton of those people out there. Allow Power Query to export data. So this is then they want to write it back to a flat file or SQL table. You can, yeah, I think you can do this today with like R and Python. I'm pretty sure you can do that. So maybe this new functionality is rated a little low. Ease of use, yes, it would definitely be somewhat easier to use than like R or Python. And decrease the complexity should be, I guess, probably fairly simple to implement. New, yeah, you can't really do that today. Impact, only people that want this. Um, so yeah, and it kind of sort of runs counter to the whole concept of Power BI ingesting data or querying data. It Microsoft's always seemed to shy away from doing anything that to allow like right back to data sources and have that be handled in other applications and that. So I don't know if they'd ever go down this path. Maybe ability to move, copy, report dashboards between groups workspaces. Move reports, dashboards between group workstations. Okay, instead of republishing. So again, I mean, it would definitely make things easier, decrease the complexity. It should be relatively easy to implement. New, yeah. Impact, I think people would use it. But today you can get it. You can, well, maybe this should be a little lower because just republish it to the other workspace. All right, report and page and report level filters on measure. This is kind of an interesting idea. I'm not sure. I really have to think about this one because they're not there for good reasons. I think today, page and report level for filters. So 3 decrease complexity, sure. because you wouldn't have to add it to every single visual and that sort of thing. Well, maybe this should be a 4 as well. And decreased complexity, ease of use, decreased complexity. We'll leave them both at 4s. Easy to implement. I don't think it'd be very easy to implement. Um, there's some, I can think of some scenarios where this is kind of a bad idea, or you would not want to allow this, because what is the what is the value of a measure at the page level, right? Certain measures definitely like a constant or other sorts of measures, but how do you know what the value of a measure is at a page level or a report level? A measure kind of by its very nature is driven by the context of the visual. New would definitely be new. Impact, I think some people use it. Embed dashboard into SharePoint. So again, not really increasing in ease or anything like that. You can do reports. They want dashboards. Easy implement should be relatively middle of the road. New, yes, definitely new. Just the people that use SharePoint and want Power BI reports in there. Power BI desktop connector for ServiceNow. Okay, yeah. Ease of use. There's probably ways. I think there's ways you can do that today with third-party connectors and stuff, so that make it easier and decrease the amount of complexity involved. It's a connector, so it can't be that hard to implement. New, yeah, it's new. That might be lower because there's ways to do this today. Impact, only people that want to connect Power BI to ServiceNow. Scroll in tooltip. So again, this one I feel like this is solved. Because what they're complaining about here is that the tooltip page is too small, and they want it to be bigger, or they want to be able to scroll within it. Well, now you can use like any size page for your tooltip. So I feel like this one should be buttoned up and wrapped up and closed out, um, because it seems like this is done to me, right? Add a connector. Oh, I'm scrolling tooltip, so not really adding anything to ease of use. Easy implement, sure. New, no, it's there. It seems like to me. And impact is only people that want really big tooltips. Add a connector for MS Project and PP files. This one I'm kind of surprised isn't there already. So ease of use, yep. Decrease complexity. There's ways to do it, right? But this will make it easier. Should be easy to implement. New functionality, definitely. Really only people that use Project. Exclude a table from refresh and Power BI service. This one, I rated this one. I'm not sure I agree with everything, in terms of, because you can disable the report from refresh in the desktop, and then you publish it to the service, and that table is not going to get refreshed. But I guess this is complaining about certain circumstances where it does trigger a refresh, I guess. Anyway, I rated it, not really adding anything to ease of use, should be easy to implement, and new and impact relatively low, because I feel like this is really there today. And if it really is like something that's triggering that when you've set it to not refresh, is this really an idea or a bug? All right, allow hyperlinks and text boxes to open in same tab. All right, fine. Not really adding much to complexity, decreasing complexity or ease of use. Easy implement should be pretty easy to implement. Like, have a flag that you can set that says, "Hey, open hyperlinks in the same tab," kind of stuff. New, it's not really new. And also, can't you just right click on the link and say open a new tab? Maybe not. I don't know. Impact, okay, fine, people use it. Create and read only an external license here. Okay, this is Power BI Premium, sort of. I guess. They're like a guest user from an external entity and they want a license for it. So again, not doing anything for ease of use. Microsoft can implement any licensing they want to. They've proven that. I gave it a 1 for new because again, Power BI Premium, where you don't even need licenses for the users, and then impact is a 2. Gateway update notification auto update. This would definitely make things easier for administrators. I don't think it'd really decrease complexity, but it'd make things easier, right? If you could set a thing in your enterprise, a gateway at a certain scheduled time would go and update automatically. Definitely ease of use, not really doing anything in terms of decreasing complexity. Should be easy to implement, definitely new. Impact, only people that worry about their enterprise gateways. Allow more data points to be displayed on a map. Okay, sure. This is, there's always the data limit, limitations in there. So this one, I just gave it threes across the board. Okay, MySQL over SSH. Yep, we're getting towards the end here. Let's see, MySQL. Where am I missing it? MySQL over SSH. Yeah, we're really getting to the end here. Not really doing things for ease of use. It's easy to implement, should be. Um, Modify the connector. Is it new functionality? You can still connect to MySQL, just not over SSH. I don't, only people that want to connect Power BI to MySQL. See records feature improvements. The see records feature is great, not complete. Needs to be used with all types of visuals. Da da da. Da. Okay, all right. So there's the ratings for it. It's new functionality. I think people would use it. It's just kind of middle of the road. Power BI Global Admin. As an IT man, I need to see all content. Datasets, reports, dashboards has been created and shared across the entire online tenant. Okay. Yep. You can kind of do that today. There's an API out there that you can, basically do this sort of stuff programmatically. But would it make things a heck of a lot easier? Yes, I think that the admin tools in Power BI need to be improved greatly. Right? There's been a lot of reliance on the API. I'll just do it in the API. I'll just do it in PowerShell. That's complicated, man. And there, I could see a lot of external tools being created to help with this. So I think this would definitely, definitely be a lot easier to use, definitely be decrease complexity a lot. Should be relatively easy to implement some of this stuff. Um, Nunu, I gave it a low score because again, you can do a lot of this stuff today using the APIs. And the impact is, well, it's only the global admins that would care. So it's not like the vast majority of users. Set transparency for colors in Power BI. This is kind of an interesting concept. Um, I gave it came out fairly high, like for ease of use and decreased complexity, because you have to do jump through a lot of hoops to kind of get around some of that sort of stuff. Um, and I think it's fair to middling for everything else. Disable visual highlighting and interactions. So when clicking on certain elements on a visual, I can control the interaction this selection has on other visuals. When I was wondering if there's the ability to completely disable the clickability of a visual. Okay, that's right. I don't want the end user to be able to click it because it causes problems and things like that. I don't think that. Well, no, I don't. Yeah, this is definitely. Still think this is this is kind of an issue. So definitely, there's some tricks maybe to get around some of this sort of stuff by putting like one like large transparent visual across the whole page so they can't click on stuff, or putting a transparent visual across it. But this would definitely make it easier. Um, Disable visual or decrease the complexity of the solution, right? Should be relatively easy to implement. Um, and fair to middling as far as new and new functionality and impact again, because you can sort of do some of that stuff today. Text box vertical alignment. Okay, this is kind of similar to that card visual. It sort of comes out, should be easy to do, and I think fair to middling for everything else. Cognos TM1 is a data source. Okay. Should be it's a connector, should be easy to do. Rates low as far as impact because only your Cognos TM1 people care. Grouping fields into dimensions and measures. Grouping fields into dimensions, but this one again, I feel like folders solves this issue. Grouping fields into dimensions and measures will allow for quickly locating the fields and helps design reports faster rather than searching the long list of fields. Well, just create a folder for your dimensions, and you can create subfolders for that, and create a folder for your measures and any subfolders for that. It seems like this is done. But maybe I'm misunderstanding what this is talking about. Grouping field, but it seems like it. But if folders solves this problem, then this idea should go away, or be marked completed. So grouping fields into dimensions, and yep. So okay, it's is it new? No, not really. Okay. Again, I feel like that one's done. Back button featured to clear selected drill through filter value. You've got the drill up and drill down. Maybe a back. I don't know. I think I gave this one threes across the board. I don't know. It seems like this is already there. KPI customization, font size. This is, this is already done. Um, yeah, this work is in progress 2016. You can set the font sizes in KPI visuals today for the main graphic as well as other elements that exists. So this one should be marked complete, in my opinion. So I don't know why this is hanging out there, but it is. All right, we're on the last page. Support SQL Server geometry, geography data types, and Power BI. This would be kind of cool. I don't think it makes things easier to use necessarily. Should be easy to implement. You know, the tabular data model already has these, already supports this. It's just not surfaced in Power BI. New, yeah. Impact, I think some people would use it. Ragged or parent-child hierarchy. Um, anyway, you can read through that one. It's pretty much middle of the road. Should be definitely new functionality. Measure-driven data labels. Need to have specific data points. So just Jeffrey Weirs. And anyway, you read through this, and this one's got some pretty cool functionality. I voted for it. Definitely make things easier than what you have to do today. You have to kind of like have little card labels and things like card visuals and all these other things that you kind of sprinkle over things, makes things a ton easier. I even think complexity could be rated, maybe a decreased complexity be rated a little higher. Probably not the easiest thing, but should be about middle of the road to implement. Definitely new functionality, and I think a lot of people would use this. So I like this. I like this idea. Report page tooltip on all objects. So this one is another one where I feel like this is done because they extended it and they even say down here support for table, matrix, and cards back in 2018. But this thing's still hanging out there as open because I guess they mentioned like squares or like shapes and things like that. So maybe I mean or just overlay that shape with a card visual that doesn't have anything on it and is transparent and you achieve the same effect. So sure, I mean I think it would something like this could decrease the complexity of the solution, right? And definitely there'd be some ease of use improvements, right? Or at least middle of the road. Easy to implement should be relatively easy to implement. They've implemented it for like a bunch of other things. In fact, there is even a tooltip for a shape, right? But it doesn't allow a tooltip page. It allows a tooltip. So you could extend that fairly easily, I would think. New, yeah, it'd be new functionality. Impact, I think people would use it. All right, set default x-axis scrolling position. This one, this one had me scratching my head a little bit. So the idea here is that okay, the earliest dates show up on the right or on the left, and the latest dates show up on the right. And so I want, if I have a long list of dates, then I have to scroll to see the most recent. The problem I have with this idea, and so I want to be able to start at the left and scroll backwards. So I guess the problem I have is this idea. First off, is like sorting, right? Just change your sorting from ascending to descending, and then you're still at the scroll position over here, and maybe it makes more logical sense to this that, hey, I want to see my latest dates over to the left, so I want to be able to scroll back, and maybe that's what this is saying. But I mean, you can basically get there today with this one, um, and so it's like I don't think it's doing anything around ease of use or like decreasing complexity. Easy to implement, yeah, it's kind of there, or should be really easy to implement. New, I don't think it's new. I think sorting solves this problem to a large degree. I'm not sure why you'd want to start on the left and scroll backwards versus just sorting the other way, right? I don't know. Um, and I think I was tired at the end of this and gave it a 3 just to get out of it. All right, so then here we have tied. We're tied with setting a default axis scrolling position, and this is the kind of stuff that just drives me nuts. I know thousands of people struggle with this. I've helped over 1,000 people or more with totals and measures. All right, and it's tied with an idea that it's like feel like is already done, or I just don't see a huge amount of value to it, versus just flipping your sort. So I mean, again, I'm probably biased on all this stuff, and I apologize to everybody. If I felt like I've impugned your idea, man. I mean, everybody's got their own ideas. This is just my perspective on things, man. I fully understand that everyone has different perspectives and different wants and desires, and it was not my design goal to impugn anyone's idea. I'm just giving you my raw thoughts and kind of going through these. And feel free to disagree in the comments, man. If I made some comment about your idea and you want to educate me about it, man, absolutely go right on ahead. I want to hear the feedback. Because that's how we learn, and how we understand one another. So this has been fun for me to go through. I don't know if anybody's going to actually listen to the end of this thing, but I really this is a useful exercise to me to kind of go through. And if we want, we can actually, again, I'm probably biased, right? Largest to smallest. So we look at the top 4 or 5 ideas that came out of this, right? Of course, measure totals. Number one by far. But the measure-driven data labels, I think that's Jeffrey Weir's, is like right up there, man. Source control, right up there. Vertical and horizontal small multiples. Again, I feel like that is done, but and obviously it's something that was important, probably, and so it got done. I feel like this is done. Data catalog integration is up there. Um, that seems like an outlier to me, but sure, that's the way the totals came out, right? Increasing export data limits, DAX, that also seems like an outlier. Like you can do a lot of that today, but all right. The selected all search results, that's a cool one. The global admin stuff, yeah, absolutely, man. More power in the hands of the global admins to do more stuff within the service. That would be fantastic, I think. And then we got these other transparency colors for Power BI, disable visual highlighting and interactions, report page tooltips on all objects. Those are all right up there. So again, this is my rating system, and again, I tried to go through all of these and just objectively like jot down my thoughts about them. But let's go let's jump all the way back, all the way back. So let's see how I do this. If I figured this out before, I need to clear my sort, or I'll just sort by something else. Here, let me sort by, not by total, but by votes. Go back to votes. Okay, so add expand. So where'd that come? It came out as a 13, right? And say the same with page and tab. So pretty far down. Because so what I got, we got range from 22 to 10. So 13. So like in my rating, right, a lot of the top votes, are really bad, really scored pretty low in terms of their impact. Like light and dark one is like almost at the bottom, right? It's not going to do anything for anybody, other than maybe they like it. So yeah, I mean, there's not too many, and just even in the top. I think if we look through this, like our top one here is like 16, and there's another 16. Oh, there we go. There's an 18 source control. So that's and then increased data export limits, you got a 17. So really in the top 20, 25 or so, we really only have like one 18 and one 17 and a 16, or maybe a two 16s. So it's a real mystery to me, honestly, how this voting system works, and is it people that are going out and, hey, everyone in the company needs to go vote for this, or how this I'd love to see the metrics behind, like, hey, how many, there's got to be data behind all this. I'd love to see the data. Love to get access to the data and say, hey, here's how many people voted. Here's all the people that voted, and they all have the same email address, or something like that. Who knows? But it'd be an interesting exercise to kind of really dig into this data set, because this is a really cool data set, I think. And I really enjoyed this video. I may do another one with rating all of the planned features. And I thought about that, but I may not, because it seems like the planned feature set is kind of a debacle. Like I was finding ideas out there that were planned from for like 6 years and never been implemented. So I'm not sure how up to date the plan stuff is, but it is real kind of eye opening because there are more than one idea that is planned that has like one vote. And, I don't know if the voting system really matters. I don't know. It'd be nice to get more insights into like how Microsoft goes through and ranks these and rates these and what their rankings and ratings are. I'd love to see that stuff. But anyways, video's far too long already, so I will see everybody next time I post a video. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.